make this texture because I want to think of something that's welcoming. When you look, first of all, when you look at a pineapple, it doesn't look very welcoming. It looks really hard to get it. But once you get it, it tastes good, you know? So I was trying to play on that idea, like, when you see these pieces, I want you to think, wow, is that even clay? Why does it look so soft? I want to touch this. I want to feel it. I want to know what it feels like. I want to hug it. So I thought that's what welcoming really feels like. Something that you have to touch, that feeling of embrace, that feeling of when you look at it, you feel like you have a sanctuary, that it's abundant, that you're not being judged for who you are, just being yourself. Now here I'm starting to think, like, how can I make this look like a crown? A lot of times I started coming up with this idea, thinking about Biggie Smalls when he had the picture of him on the crown side. So I kind of get that analogy of like the work is like not straight on the head, but it's like the side of his crown in the Biggie picture. So I think about that too. So yes, there's always hip hop involved. The one thing that I'm doing differently for my thesis show, I wanted to call the show Welcome to Afro City. It was two people who were actually right here, the patriarch and matriarch of Afro City. I thought it would be powerful to actually show who were the founders of this city. Afro City is in Iowa, but in the year 3021. So my whole show is going to be actually in the year 3021. I just want to make sure this clay is compressed as best it can, so there won't be no cracks. I've done so much research about this work. I wanted to now, like, I became the research, you know? So like, since I know so much about the issues of like where the pineapple actually came from and like why I'm making the work, why I make these lines, I wanted to now like make the work that it becomes me. The year that it was made would be in that range of like 3024, you know, and that, you know, so everything's like in the future. So you're like looking at it like, oh man, these are like actually artifacts that we're looking at. You see something that looks like, you know, it kind of looks like it was in the past, but at the same time it's present to us every day, but then it also has a futuristic look to it. I love watching, you know, and reading science fiction books and watching science fiction like Next Generation, Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff like that, Battlestar Galactica. And of course I love comic books, but I was into Marvel. Before anybody else was into Black Panther, I was down with Black Panther since like, you know, the 80s, before anyone heard of him. Speaking about both things, what it feels like to be who you are without a mask. And can you live in the world as who you are all the time, instead of living in the world as a mask? That's pretty deep. Because even, let's say that you did live in this world without a mask. Other people will see your no mask as a mask. This is really important. Check it out. This is the microphone that An and I dropped to christen the Center for Afrofuturist Studies reading room. So represent, An. We did this. This is a great opportunity for me to just speak about how the research from my thesis show and also my work in general has came, and also it's been like a catalyst from being a part of Public Space One and the Center for Afrofuturist Studies since I've been here in Iowa City. My work speaks about science fiction, a love of hip hop, and history. Specifically the Middle Passage, which was the area in the Atlantic where enslaved Africans were pulled and thrown overboard because of lack of food in the slave ships. I want to speak about like what happened through those middle times as well in the work.
and like how do you find a place to really call home. It's really interesting for me coming from the South, from Atlanta, Georgia, and then coming here to the Midwest in Iowa, and it was like I felt like I was a astronaut as well, but I call it Afronauts. You know, I felt like I was coming to a new world in a different environment, different place. So I didn't really know if I really was gonna fit in. My work started thinking about how do you live in a home, and how do you get into a space. So I started to think about what could represent something that's comforting and welcoming when you are in a space where you may not feel or perceive yourself as welcome. It made me start thinking about what was that symbol that I would see a lot in the South, and that was the pineapple. And back in the South, you would see like pineapples, and they were usually gold or like gold leafed, and they would be in like a foyer of someone's home. Usually a house that was like, you know, had some money. Let's be real. And I would always like ask my mom, like, "Oh, what's that mean?" And she would say, "Oh, you know, that means hospitality, welcoming. That's a good thing because they're gonna have some good food here. You know what I mean? They're gonna treat us good." I was like, "Okay, great, great." And then, but coming here, it started making me think about that again, about being in a space where you always feel welcome and you always feel loved. And sometimes you don't feel like that here. You know, that doesn't mean just because you're black. No, I'm not saying that's that either. We've all known what it feels like to not be welcomed. So I started wanting to research that more about what is welcoming and how did the idea of the pineapple become that symbol. Doing more research, I started to find that it's definitely coming from the colonial times. And it was for Charles II during the Enlightenment period. His logo was a pineapple. He would even have paintings of his servants and his administrators presenting him with a pineapple. They're using the pineapple as a symbol of luxury, not just welcoming, but it's something of like abundance, showing my power, my worth.
This is pretty relaxing. I use, once again, my background in print, and I kind of use that repetitiveness, and I follow the form with my line, and that line becomes part of the piece.
I worked with a MFA student in the creative writing group, and her name is Leticia, and she is a poet. And we were able to be in the same class together in my fall term of my last year here at Iowa. And we started speaking about the idea of trauma. And I was telling her about my work, and she was telling me about the poems she writes. And we started, collaborating on, she would look at my work and she would make a poem from that, which was really powerful. And on her research, she was trying to find things that people would like make like recipes using the pineapple. She was like, you know what's weird? I could not find any recipes about pineapples during the colonial times. And I was like trying to tell her, this is why. They never saw the pineapple as a form of food. They just saw it as a symbol of abundance and wealth.
Usually when I watch or I read things about the future, you don't really see people of color there. You know, it's like everything is just like pristine and clean and white, but then you don't ever see other races there. And I just thought that was interesting. That like, how come there's like more diversity in the future? So I was like, oh, well, maybe I can make it more diverse. There's not just one class or one race, that everyone is equal. So it's like there's no hierarchy. That's where I came up with the idea. Not that it would be like pretty radical if you call it Afro City in Iowa when it's like a opposite or something. So that's how I kind of started. And then I was thinking a lot about Frederick Douglass, because like the patriarch is based on him. He was an enslaved African American in Maryland, and he was able to free himself and then like actually learn how to read on his own. I thought that would be powerful if like in the future when there was a major war that human beings had to go back in, underground, and then it took like 200 years to like get back out, and then they were the first group to come out and start civilization again and try to start it anew. And it just happened to be in Iowa. What would that be like to make a place where it's desolate and then make it anew again. And how do you go about doing that? One thing about this work, I feel like this is like making the form is the fast part. And then once I make the form, I slow down when I start making the texture. And I just start scratching. And depending on the piece, I might go deeper than usual. Still going with the form. I'm not deviating how the form fits to this piece because I want it to become one. This is when I start to get into like this rhythm. It's relaxing to me. I can do this for hours. I usually like work, if I can, I would do this for 10 hours straight, just, you know, I don't stop. And the funny thing is once I'm tired, I don't think I'm tired, but as soon as I feel like I'm finished, that's when everything, like I gotta go to the bathroom and everything, I'm hungry and all that. But right now, I just feel like I'm flowing with the piece. Depending on how far I scratch, it makes it seem like I had done coils to it. As you can see, it did do no coil. I didn't add any clay to this. I'm just scratching deeper into the form that it makes it look like it's further out. Like I can flare it because of how deep I'm going. Or I can go real small. That also do something to it, as you can see there. Or I can start making patterns. Making this, I started thinking about like a jar, but the jar is closed. A lot of stuff I was talking about how when you're the only person of color in a place where everyone doesn't look like you, you're taking the risk of opening up your jar, your human self, to other people. And I feel like as a person of color, you're always taking a risk at times.
On the recipes, they would say, if for the dinner table, they would say, put a pineapple in front. That will decorate all your food. Isn't that interesting that even back then, when you look at the recipes of colonial time, they're even saying to use the pineapple as a decoration.
So another element to my show is going to be food. Catered with fried chicken, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, food that, like, you know, the regular person can have. The idea, since the show was in April 10th, I was going to say that was the year that it was founded, that Afro City was founded. So it's like another way of saying that this is the party, you know? Like, let's celebrate that we got out of all of our negativity from the past and starting a whole new world again. And why not do that with food?
The pineapple is a form of like decoration, a form of like, oh, this is a beautiful thing, welcoming. However, there's also a, never gonna speak about trauma. When they would see the ship come into port, they would have a foreman come. They would run to their loading dock to get a spigot, so a big spike, and they would put a pineapple on that spike. They would like represent that is a new shipment of enslaved Africans coming to port. So that was what welcoming meant. That's deep. That was the first thing people from Africa saw, was a pineapple on a spigot, reclaiming the idea of welcoming and hospitality.
It's not that I'm bitter about it, but this is just facts. I'm just saying the facts of what happened, you know? And like, sometimes you have to deal with that. like this is what really happened. This is not like something that I'm angry about. I'm just telling you this is what happened.
What does the pineapple look like? It tastes great inside, but doesn't it look hard to try to get in? It doesn't look soft. It doesn't look like something that you want to eat. However, it does have a romantic look, or what you would say like a power look, because the top of the pineapple looks like some kind of crown. So I saw all those things formally, as well as the conceptual issues, as well as the research. All those together started to make me think about how to use that symbol into a new light. So that's when I started creating these works.
But then when you find out that it's actually clay and you touch it, it's hard. So what does that say? It's hard to be open to other people, you know? Like, what does it really feel like to be welcome? Or let's break it another way. What does it feel like to welcome someone else, you know? There's all different ways of welcoming someone. So all of a sudden, this texture actually became the form. You see how that happened? Just because I'm like, but mostly people would think I would start there. I always try to find where the form moves. Like that area here, I want to go because I feel like that's like a little bulge. So I want to pop that bulge up. So I'll play with that bulge and I'll somehow connect that to up here.
So now you're saying, like, why would they put a pineapple there? Because they used that pineapple as a form of time and space. So they were like, okay, if this is up for a certain amount of days and it hasn't, we don't smell it and it's not getting old, we know that it's been here for like 7 days, because it can be out for at least 14 days before you start to see it getting rotten or smell.
It becomes like a ritual because it's like I'm doing that repetitive movement over and over. Doing my research, I started thinking about like Aboriginal dream paintings and how they would take a stick and then put pigment on that stick and do that dot over and over and over to the point that they're making patterns. But that patterns are taking you to new spaces in the world, taking you to new times, taking you to the present, to the future, taking you to the past. So when I'm doing that texture, I'm thinking the same way. I'm using that to like actually be a time traveler, pretty much. It's funny because it does look like a jug or something. Maybe that's what was coming in my mind when I was thinking about like how you hold yourself then. Knowing when to be quiet, knowing when to say your truth, and how to be strong, being quiet at times and holding it in, and then knowing the right time to speak. So then I'll leave a little bit and go somewhere else and find where that connects to this again.